Hi, Teri. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi, Nancy Jean. Thanks for being here. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here too. I think we're on. Yeah, we're on.
We're
Okay.
on, yeah.
It takes a minute to get booted. So, D Spark, hello. Hello, Miriam and Darlene and Debbie Shifting Veils and Mary Starshine. Nice to see everybody and everybody else here today. It takes a while for StreamYard to click on over here. Hey, Annie Bear. So today we're talking about sleeping and awakening. And sleeping anyway. We were just talking about it backstage. So sorry, we're running a little bit late. And we should record backstage. This stuff.
Yeah, all the best stuff gets said backstage, guys. You just get.
Yeah, sorry. We already did a show, you guys. That's it.
We're gonna go now. We're gonna go take a nap.
Yeah. Right. Hey, Sharon, Strawberry Rhubarb Tarot. Good to see you, dear. Barbara, hello. Anyway, yeah, it's nice to see everybody coming in. And sleep is so important, and everybody's been talking about it during this awakening and how sometimes our sleep patterns shift. And I know for me, sometimes if I sleep with somebody who has a lot of energy, my late husband, when he was sick for some reason, it was like the energy was just really weird.
It's chaotic.
Yes, it was. And plus he had a brain tumor, so it was really chaotic. So it was really hard sometimes. I know I went to on a trip with some people, and there were going to be, it was a really large room, but it was a big open room. We all had separate beds and whatnot, but we were all in there together. And luckily they were all light workers or whatever you want to say. They were all intuitives. That's what I'll call them. And I slept like a baby, and I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to sleep in a room with all these people. Yep. Yeah. Darlene says her sleep cycle has been flipping for decades. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Anita, how are you doing?
The problem is that we have our idea. We're supposed to go to bed. We're supposed to sleep for 8 hours, and that's it. We're done. And what's happened is, what I ran across was some articles about sleeping and awakening and stuff, but also I've sent, and it's in the comments that are connected to my comments, the community part of my thing. I watched a woman. This is what made me think to talk to Teri about it. I watched a woman, and she does eat like a Victorian, eat like a Viking, eat like a, she does a lot of things with food and other things. And she also makes period clothing. She studies it and stitches it the way they did, hand stitch. She obviously doesn't have a lot to do, but she does have a lot. She's got all that stuff. She had a show called Sleeping Like a Victorian. And I was like, oh, well, how did Victorians sleep? Well, it ends up that in ancient times, and there's a guy who's also referenced, his name is Robert Eckert. He's a historian, but he's written several volumes on the history of sleep. And in ancient times, we didn't sleep 8 hours a night. We got up in the middle of the night. I used to always wonder, how do these people write all these grandiose diaries? I mean, I can't do it, and I have a typewriter. What's the problem? Something wrong with me? And especially people like Abigail Adams, if you've ever read any of her diaries, she has some deep, insightful things you only think about when you're real. And these are her handwritten diaries. So this is not where you can go push on edit and, check what you've written, And the reason is they woke up in the middle of the night, and that's when they did their diaries, and that's when they did their extra kinds of sewing. Or it's kind of interesting when you read some of the histories where they find where people actually talked about it. There are these guys that used to go hit their neighbor's apple grove in the middle of the night and go over, and some groups of people knew the other people would be up, and that's when they'd meet and they'd talk. They'd go to bed at sunset. So if you think about it, if you went to, I don't know where you live, but if you went to bed at sunset and then you sleep for 4 hours and then you get up and you acknowledge Abigail Adams. Yes, Abigail Adams, John Adams' wife. Somebody said Abigail who? Um,
Mhm.
and these people get up and they will go do these things, and then they'll come back and they'll go to sleep, and they'll sleep till sunrise, which many of us are forced to get up before sunrise by alarm clocks. Some of that ended in COVID, but the history of this is that we have created a false sleep cycle of 8 hours a night, and that came from the period, my least favorite period of time, the Industrial Revolution. From about the time of the American Revolution forward, when industry and businesses all became like in buildings and people didn't work on their own land. And that's what the elementals are consistently telling me. Humans lost touch with the timing of the world when they surrendered their lives into factories and gave up on the land. And that's what they're telling us. And that's what these sleep studies are telling us. So if you want to watch an interesting YouTube show, you can find it by putting in search, I slept like a Victorian. And then the other guy, she talks about Richard Eckrich in that. And they found references all the way back to the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, where they talk about how they slept in, and they don't call it sleeping in shifts. They call it the way they slept. And we're the ones, when we created this 8-hour workday and putting us all in the same building working together where you needed everybody to be there. COVID sort of took care of that to some extent. But what they said, the best thing to do is to surrender to your sleep cycle if you can, and have something prepared and be ready to do when you wake up.
That makes a lot of sense. We had some really good comments here. Rose Blue said, "Oh, just watched somebody detail and polish a 1939 Chrysler sedan." Well, that was probably exciting for you, Rose. I don't know, but I watch things that are really kind of silly on TV, that are kind of monotonous. Like, I hate to say it, I love Eckhart, but his voice is very monotone.
His voice will put you to sleep.
Yeah, it's perfect.
If you're really looking for something that can really dive you into sleep, watch Wood Turning.
Oh, Wood
The
Turning.
guys who tame. Oh, there's tons of channels on it, and they get old pieces of wood and they turn them into bowls and all this stuff. And you just watch this thing going around and around and around, and someone going back and forth with the tool. And even the guy who does opals, his show will soothe you.
Yeah. Some of them are, and I often find a British accent really soothes me for some reason. So,
yeah, I do too. I was married to one.
Yeah, my brother is. So yeah. Barbara, she says, I enjoy my 3 a.m. tea. That would be a perfect thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I will get up and get a sparkling water, and I don't drink sparkling water, but I've got these that I get at Aldi's or Whole Foods, and they're organic, and they got a little bit of flavor in them, but no sugar.
Yeah.
So yeah, the bubbles still. Oh, Pauline is asking, do you still have 2 gardens left?
No, I do not. They're gone. The gardens are gone, and they will not be back until some brave soul out there in the universe says, this looks like a great thing to make.
Yeah, Pauline, you might be the one.
Well, if you're interested in talking to me about that, that's fine. But I have all the instructions. I know who prints the scarves. I know how to get the crystals, but I have no one to pack them up, no one to do anything. So it's done.
Yeah. Annie Bear's been waking up at 2:30 daily. Moonstone. I don't sleep. Fall asleep around 2 a.m., back up at 5 a.m., or sometimes 3:30 a.m.
The only problem with that, Moonstone, is if your body is adjusted to it, I'm not going to I'll recommend you, but I had sleep apnea because when I weighed over 300 pounds, I had sleep apnea just because my poor little lungs said, you got about 150 too many pounds on here. And the first night that they forced me to breathe. They put the air thing on, and people said, "How could you sleep with that mask on?" They put that mask on me. I was in the sleep lab for about an hour and a half, and if you've never been there, they poke your head full of little prods and they see how your body's functioning. And I looked around. I said, "I'm never going to be able to sleep like this." Well, I did. I fell asleep, and I was asleep for a little more than an hour. And they came in and they said, "We have to put you on a machine to breathe for you." And I said, "Oh." And she said, "Your bloods, your oxygen saturation levels have dropped twice to brain damage levels." And one of the reasons I couldn't sleep was because my body would wake up saying, "You got to get up and breathe because you're not getting enough oxygen." So they put the mask on me, and I thought, now I'm all hired. I look like, something out of a science fiction movie. And then they put this thing on my head that is very weird looking. And I said, "I'll never go to sleep with this on." And I slept. They let me sleep for 10 hours. The woman said I got the all out record for her for tracking REM sleep. I had a solid hour and 45 minutes of REM sleep. You're not supposed to REM sleep like that, guys. She said you had so little REM sleep, and that will cause you to have a lot of problems if you don't. So if you really, really, now they also can test you and say, yeah, you only need to sleep 3 or 4 hours a night. That's the other end of it. I'm on the opposite end of that. And when I did keto and lost weight, I started sleeping 8 hours a night with or without the mask. And that's when I started sleeping 8 hours a night, when I really started losing weight, because losing weight and getting all your hormones straight is a big chunk of it. So she doesn't have it. She weighs 125 pounds. Girl, unless you're just going crazy, figure out some obvious midnight habits. That was Moonstone at 11:14. See, if you don't have it, then you're fine. I mean,
There I go. Can you hear me now?
yeah,
Can you hear my siren now?
no.
My neighbors, oh, good. My neighbors have a alarm going off on they have this huge monster garage. He redoes vintage cars.
Oh,
So anyway, whatever, it's going off. Sometimes if you go really deep, really fast, Moonstone, I think then that can be the equivalent of like
right.
8 hours of sleep, can it? Yeah. I know when I used to wear my watch to sleep, and I don't index on it was bugging me, but I was great at sleeping. I went to REM really fast, and I think that's because I meditated a lot, but also it was something that I excelled at, and I'm like, finally, I found it. I'm so happy.
Right. I wear a watch, and it's for 2 reasons. It monitors my oxygen sats, which it's not a problem anymore, but it could have been. And it monitors other things. It monitors my heart rate. It does tell me when I get above 120 beats a minute, which people go, "Oh my God." I feel that buzz frequently, but they want to know. And because they can't find it causing any harm, they leave it alone. But at night, when I go to sleep, my first 45 minutes of sleep are deep sleep. And you're supposed to go down into deep sleep. I don't. I just drop like a rock.
Yeah, that's me too. I drop like a rock, and then I sit there, and then I'll come back. I'll wake up, and then I'll go back in. Now, sometimes I find that I have not been awake, and yet the app says that I have been awake for like 2 or 3 hours. So I don't know if that's when I'm astral projecting or, not on the planet any longer.
Well, I don't know what it does, because I know when I had my heart monitor on,
Yeah.
and they took me away for 6 hours, and they called me up and said, "Why'd you take the monitor off for 6 hours?" And I didn't. When we looked they said, "Look at what it says on your watch," and what it said on my watch was just kind of,
Yeah.
Leaves you alone.
So Debbie's been taking naps. I wish I was that person, Debbie. I love a nap, but Actually, as I've gotten older, I'm better at taking naps. I don't wake up groggy, but when I was
Mhm.
younger, I always did. I still rarely do it. Okay, Anita has a central sleep apnea. It's different than obstructed sleep apnea.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's in her brain.
Wow. Interesting.
That's when my youngest child has and still sleeps every night with a CPAP machine because they have central. And when she was little, you'd go in to make her bed. Well, I'm not big on making beds, but I'd look in the room and see, gee, somebody needs to make that bed. And it looked like she'd marched around the bed. I mean, the covers were everywhere, and you tie it all down again. And then she, when we took her in, she had the same thing I did. She was reaching brain damage levels, and she was 17 at the time. And they put a mask on her, and they managed to get all the equipment and on her that day because they said where she was living was so dangerous in her thing, and she cannot sleep, and she has central because she was like really upset when I quit using the machine, and I said I don't need it. It's overblowing my lungs, and so I showed her that I was sleeping just fine, and my oxygen sats were staying fine.
Wow. Rose Blue, it was a smartwatch, and it wasn't an expensive one. I got it on the A word, and it was, I think it was like $30 or $40. It wasn't one of the more expensive ones, but it had everything I needed and much more. I found out later. Debbie says, yesterday I had plenty of sleep fighting a migraine. My Apple Watch quit working after wearing it for a month. Oh, so you are one of those, Debbie. Do you knock things out when you touch them?
I can't wear non-digital watches. Analog watches, even as a child, the only analog watch I had as a kid that I could read was one I wore around my neck.
Yeah,
They break.
I knock things out around the house all the time, and I know that once Mercury or whoever it is that's out there is messing with me, is gone, that it'll turn back on. That I just have to wait a week or a couple of days, and my appliances will go back to working. Mary says, I learned self-hypnosis when I was in my 20s so I could take power naps anytime. I did a lot of shift work, so it was necessary.
Yeah,
Learned
that's
it
true.
from Handbook to Higher Consciousness.
It's
Still
true.
impressed. I'm going to write that down. Another one. What was the other book that you were talking about, Nancy Jean? The Magnetic Aura, right?
Magnetic aura, and I saw a thing about it today. Showed up in my comments from the shows I've been doing, and it had 3 different people touting it. And so I don't know if the author has a lot of good friends or uses a lot of surnames, but I'm going to look it up and see what it is. But this woman claimed it could help you with those sorts of things.
Yeah. And Nancy says your mother used to say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I have a best friend that says that all the time, but and she's always go, go, go. But they do say that it's really important to your body. Do you want to talk about that, Nancy Jean, when we sleep, what happens to our body? Or
Yeah,
I
well,
can?
in the article that Teri and I kind of base this off of, there's a lot of hormonal realigning in your body when you're asleep. Now we're talking the typical average person, so maybe your hormones don't need to be adjusted. But if you don't, that's part of why overweight people can't lose weight until they can sleep because of the hormones that need to get triggered in your body.
Yeah. And it's funny, we say things like that. Like we always also say that, women are so great at multitasking. We're not supposed to multitask. It's not good for our brains. I mean, it's a horrible thing to do to your brain. Now they're finding out, but we were kind of conditioned by society that we had to be doing all these things, and we didn't have time for a nap, and constructs.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get a watch if you want one, Rose Blue. Okay, I would sit up Take a breath and go back to sleep. I didn't know I did that. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not using one anymore. And you used to say that too, Anita. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly, Mary Starshine. The brain has to sleep enough to clear the toxins. It's really important.
I'll tell you about the woman who was my sleep doctor. Fascinating lady. Anyway, there's a chip that's in your machine and you send it into them, and now they do it by radio. I mean, they get it. And she had 4 or 5 people who were psychic or mediums or in that world. And she used to say, "Don't tell me what days you worked. I'm going to mark on the calendars," because at that time I worked certain days and then didn't. It's not like this where it's kind of like whenever the screen comes on. And she could tell which days I'd been working and which I hadn't by how my sleep went. And she said she said, "I would love to do a long-term study on this because you don't sleep like other people sleep. And when you've taken in the energy of working with other people's emotions and their energies and what's going on in their brains, your brain changes for that night to shift it all around. So you take on what her opinion was after talking to me about it. I took on what was mine and kind of let the other stuff go."
Huh.
And she had another woman that sort of felt the same way.
So, yeah. Wow. Interesting. Multitasking is now called task switching, which basically means constant interruptions.
Yeah, because if your mind can do one thing at a time, how can you multitask?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. Felt very emotionally charged last night that I could not power down. Crowley. Yeah. You know what? There are just some days like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what you did that day or where the planets were that might have affected you. Cause I feel that too. There are some days that I'll go. And then when I'm going to bed, I'm just so happy. I don't want to, like, you kind of get that euphoria,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're just not ready. They also talk about like men's bodies, for the most part, work a lot on the circadian rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
of the light and dark of the planet. And then women's bodies, on the other hand, also work on a different one that's more about your menstrual cycle.
Yeah, we have a lot more hormones mixed in our bodies. So
Yeah. And it's so different. And yet, we're supposed to be working the Monday through Friday, the same shifts that men are. I think eventually that's going to change because it is harder for us to, not just sleep, but get things done that way. Yeah. Okay. They still teach on YouTube, Silva Method. I see the ads for it all the time, Mary, all the time, and how great it was, especially on somebody that won. They've got an ad for it on somebody that won a contest or something. A lot. I think being on the phone right now before bed makes it hard to fall asleep.
That's the blue light effect on your eyes.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with electronics, there is a blue light effect, and I guess I've just decided I put a blue light screener, but you can't take it completely off because I need my phone to go to sleep at night, and I can't figure a way around it. I can't do it without seeing what I'm looking at.
So are you watching these shows on your phone at night before you go to bed?
Yeah, me. Yes, the Antiques road trip. Yeah. I'm into season 15.
You're a professional.
I'm a professional by now. I'm like, oh, that'll never sell.
I watched that, and there's this guy in England. His name is Drew, and he goes around and picks up like architectural artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like Antiques Roadshow, but he's a picker and he goes sell the dealers. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, full moons are difficult for you, D. Yeah, the moon shifts really do it differently, don't they? Rose says the full moon winds me up. If I don't take 5 milligrams of melatonin. Okay, so melatonin gets me hyped. Like
Yeah, you
some
gotta
people
be
are,
careful. You need if it works for you, use it. If you
yeah,
take it and it doesn't work for you, it acts like a cup of coffee, accept that reality. I
yeah.
can drink I can drink coffee at midnight and go right to sleep.
Oh, I can't.
But I can't drink coffee anymore because it awakens my pee gene.
Yeah. Well, I can easily do that. Let me tell you. Um, I can't drink coffee past or tea or green tea past 12 noon if I want to go to sleep at 9 or 10. You're an empathic shift worker, hit menopause and was a wreck for sleeping, now retired and it's leveled out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shift work is horrible. My father said that he was a doctor and he did 24-hour up until he retired at 65. He had a couple days a month when he'd be in the hospital 24 hours. They had a room for them to stay in and rest and stuff. It's not the same. And he said, we're just killing ourselves doing this. But he said, it's either that or let the patient die. So,
Yeah. Kendra, I've been meditating before bed and telling myself only leave my body and astral travel from my heart chakra, third eye, or crown chakra to avoid nightmares, and it's been helping a lot.
good.
I love that, Kendra.
That
So
is.
they do talk about like before you go to sleep, you're very close to your subconscious. So to think very abundant thoughts or benevolent thoughts. It's benevolent, yeah. And
Mhm.
and then most benevolent. And then when you wake up, the same thing, to like give yourself a compliment when you wake up or because so often we wake up and we think, oh man, I didn't get this done yesterday. I got to do this. And
Mhm.
then you go into that story sometimes of why didn't you do that? What's your deal? So
Mhm.
yeah, it's really important. I'm sure they talk about that on Jose Silva. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's the thought pattern the last one you have and the first one you have, set your mind. So I have a friend who we nicknamed him Eeyore. And no matter what you'd say, he'd go, but then this happens. And he sends me all kinds of political junk I don't want. And he believes in a progressive society, not a regressive society, but he gives them way too much power. So finally, I had to call him up and very gently tell him, don't send me any more of that crap. I don't even want it on my phone.
Yeah. I don't wanna talk about it either. The political is just I'll talk about it every once in a while on
Mhm.
rare occasions, it'll come in. But, and I didn't for a long time, and then, this year the end of last year, let's say that, I
Mhm.
finally decided that, everybody needs to stand together, and I'm gonna go for it some days. Not very often, but some days.
I have
Um,
Sundays. That's my day. You want to
yeah,
talk to me about that crap? I'll answer. And there are still some questions I want to answer. We got some on Sunday, and I was like, that's not our lot in life. What the questions I have the most difficulty with is people who want me to hold them like they're a little kid and say it's going to be all right. I can't do that. They need to find their own God and their own way to get to there.
right. Yeah. You are you. You're your own guru. Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. So Rose says, I must have astral traveled a lot as a kid because I was tired when I woke up. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
probably so. And Mary says, sometimes when I wake up, my first thought is, holy crap, I'm still here. That was me, January 21st, Mary. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody else moved to a different realm, and I'm the only one left on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, but where were we headed with it? Oh, yeah. So I've got somebody in my family who I dearly love who has early onset dementia, and he slept uh, with a monitor for the whole house, like not very far from his head. And he would always say, it's bothering me. And, but didn't change it. didn't get up and move it, but knew that it was bothering him. So it's we have to be careful about that. The stuff that's around. I don't know how many of y'all have 5D or 4D in your house for internet. And this is entertainment only. I don't know anything about it really, but it kind of frightens me because they say that you can't keep houseplants around it. Sometimes they'll have a tendency to die. So we just got upgraded on our Google fiber, and he was saying, "Well, do you want the 4G or 5G or whatever it's called?" I'm sorry, I was saying 4D and 5D.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we want to not go to those.
Right. Anyway, but I remember when I was little, and my mom would even say back then, never live close to a power plant because it's not good for your brain waves. And I think it's true. Yeah. Debbie says it's difficult for me not to be focused on the political. That is why I'm here for this battle. My 2 past lives are tied to this. Yeah.
It's okay. You can be focused on the political as long as you don't fall into their trap of fear. If you're focused on the political and it makes you be fearful, then that's diminishing why you're here. What you need to say is, yes, you can say you can do that, but I'm going to be focused in a different direction, or do what you can do to help. In Dallas right now, there's a demonstration about what's happening with ICE, and there's people down on the streets somewhere in this city battling it. And sometimes putting your physical force, your physical being into that's important. But, it's hard for me to not be political because I got a kid who's in it. And, and I talk about it, but I can remember when I was younger, and something that happened that most of you weren't alive when it happened. It was LBJ signed the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. And at the time, all the newscasters are saying, this is going to bring us to war. It's going to put us head to head with Russia. And I was so affected by it that I had to go soak in a tub of warm water, and I had to keep it warm for 3 hours while I soaked out the absolute terror that poured into my body. So, and that's when I started saying, I used to work in a newsroom, and it said, if it bleeds, it leads. And that's their mentality. And I can remember watching my daughter sing in a choir concert, and here was all these kids, every color under the rainbow, in this school producing this wonderful program. And yet, what was I going to go home and read about? I was going to read about the 2 kids that beat up someone outside the 7-Eleven. Not the fact that there was 100 kids on the stage that weren't beating up on anybody. They were performing and doing beautiful things. So you got to realize it's what lens they're casting the reality through.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are those on the planet that are really stirring the pot. Their algorithm.
That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
They want to make you question. I question everything everybody says to me. I say, does that make sense to me? And if it feels good, I hold on to it. If it doesn't, I go hit the road.
Yeah.
But they want you to, I've been challenged by some people saying, well, how can you stand there and say this? And I said, I'm not telling you to listen to it. I can still stand here and say it. And then my next thing is read between the lines.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Kendra says, yes, I remember dreaming every night, and a lot of it lucid dreaming. Sometimes it feels like I didn't get restful sleep. Yeah. And you can, so for me, I look at that and I think you can do it a couple of different ways, Kendra. You can tell your guides that you don't want to have so many memories of it if you don't want to, or not be attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to witness it. But there are times that I wake up and I know that I've been on the other side doing a lot of business. And it's a lot when I wake up. So
I guess I'm lucky. I have to have other readers call me and say, "You really did a lot of work last night." Oh, did I?
yeah.
Okay.
It's funny who all we see in our dreams, and we
Mhm.
know the same people. We go to the same places in our dreams, a lot of us, the same houses, the same beds, the same closets or whatever. It's interesting. Or the same spaceships, of those of you that do that. Yeah. Chicken in the news about 2 times a day for a minute or so, and I think I'm waiting for breaking news.
I
Um,
I turned the breaking news app off on my phone,
yeah.
and all of the things that were always saying, "Guess what happened 5 minutes ago?" and da 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 da. And when you and I used to lecture people about not being ignorant. So I,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now, I'm real happy. You know.
Right. And when you see the stuff that's happening, to be watch it, witness it, but don't be attached to the outcome, which is really easier to say than to do. That's why it's easier not to be involved sometimes. But and then there are other times like they're just bringing in 9/11, but also many things that have gone on in this planet since then, that it is really sometimes a thing that's in motion. The energy is still in motion around it. And so be gentle with yourself if you have like an hour of TV, or maybe you're going to just say, okay, I'm going to watch this until I see how the energy lays with it,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you do that, Nancy, Jane?
I'll People will suggest movies or things to me to watch, and I'll start to watch them, and I'll just, like I said, that's world I used to live in, and I I can see where it's drifting, and I just turn it off. And I took me a lot because I'm also the sort of person that if you start a book, you finish it because
Oh,
you know you might miss something further on. I have in my old age said there's a whole lot of books I guess I won't need to be. I mean, I don't think they're going to ask me about that when I cross over. So,
right. I'm a pitter patter. Unless it's, I just started reading fiction again. I hadn't read it for 10 years. I quit. A lot of times, if you have trauma, um,
mhm.
it'll stop the fiction. I do a lot of nonfiction, but that's a pitter patter thing. I read the chapter I'm interested in, and then I move on to,
Mhm.
5 chapters or 5 books. But I just started again last year reading fiction again, and I'm happy to say that it's fun and I can get involved in it. I can also go bye-bye with it, but there we go. Rose, I don't have internet service. What's a good shield stone because I live near a tower?
Shungite.
Yeah. I always have shungite here, right on my desk because Nancy Jean told me about it and I didn't realize it, but this is what it looks like, you guys. And I think it absorbs all the energy, doesn't it? Is that
It
what it
came
does?
from it. This is it came from outer space. Shungite is a black element that was created by a meteor that hit the world 13 million years ago, and it's somewhere on the Russian-Chinese border. And there must have been. I'm glad I wasn't around for that explosion. And it has the purest. It's the purest form of carbon that's in the natural world, but it came from outer space. I mean, it took the power of outer space to refine the carbon that much. Um, they if you get down to when I do my show on crystals, I promise I'll do it. One of the things I'll talk about is its crystalline form. When you get down to its molecular form, they're buckyballs. I don't know if you know about Minister Fuller, but that's the geodesic domes. It's like both sides of a geodesic dome, and the energy just balances in it. They actually can, if they grind it up and make it small enough, they can run through some very polluted or even radioactive material through it, and it will clean it out. The water that comes out the other side is pure.
Wow.
It's an incredible stone. But
That's interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you can You're not going to go out in your backyard and find it. And but it doesn't, every stone you've got a very good necklace of it. You don't need to have a giant stone of it. I have an egg of it in my office, which absorbs all of the EMF energy. That electromagnetic field is what you want to get rid of.
Yeah. I think we were doing a show together and I was like, man, I'm just ready to fly out of this chair. You're like, where's your shungite? And I said, and you told me what it looked like. And I was like, oh my God, I just got the necklace of it like the week before.
But you can mix it in with other stones and they'll kind of strengthen each other.
Yeah.
You can put it near quartz. Quartz like to activate its energy. That'll sort of multiply its energy. And they're not like AA batteries. They don't run out.
Good. I like that. Yeah.
And if you really live near a tower, I'd suggest you wear protective crystals like shungite, like this is the other one that's on my desk, my obsidian.
Yeah.
It absorbs because it came out of the volcanic energy from the center of the earth. It's very pure. It's actually glass and looks like glass. So. And you get some pretty obsidian. You can get, it's all different colors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got also this water filter and it has a charcoal filter. It's just a gravity fed and it's, mine's a Berkey, but there's all sorts of different kinds that do this at all kinds of different price points. We had one when we were in Mexico traveling a while back, and it was really nice. They just had chunks of charcoal in it with rocks, and it went through the water, and it really cleaned it out. But I did want to get into that China-Russia border. Is that Mongolia?
No, it's in a province called Shun. That's why it's called shungite.
Okay. Because I've got such an affinity for Mongolia, and I like the energy there of the singing and the crafts that they do are so indigenous and so beautiful. Anyway,
well, they've been tied to their land forever. So
yeah, just amazing. Mary, I have a 5G phone and internet, 2 phone towers, and 22 wind towers here. No problems with plants or birds. You got it all, Mary. Got it all. Yeah, not afraid, just determined to wake people up. So see, there is that, right? And it's important that there are people here that are talking about politics. And that's why I started talking a little bit about politics, Debbie, because I feel like a lot of you guys carried the burden for years, and I didn't. I just did the meditating and stuff. And anyway,
we had to let you go charge your battery.
Yeah, yeah. Sharon, I used to be hooked on trazodone for sleep. For 20 years, I weaned myself off that med. Now I use renewal sleep support.
I use that too.
What? Okay, I'm writing this down too. You guys, I just have so many notes when I leave here. Always.
It's in a little skinny red spray bottle. It's not terribly expensive. I have a monthly subscription to them, and I don't subscribe to things because I'm typically not a joiner, but I found that you spray, in my case, I spray 5 times under my tongue before I go to bed, and it makes a difference. And one time my order was a little bit delayed, so I was using the tail end and I could tell the difference. And trazodone, I have a story about trazodone, strawberry rhubarb. My husband was given, my husband was on trazodone. And when he had his stroke, they moved him to a room with another patient was in the room, except this guy had a hemorrhoid problem. And so all he talked about was his hemorrhoid problem, which is not the sort of thing you discuss with an Englishman. But anyway, and so Bill was all stressed out. Of course, he was stressed out. He'd had a stroke. He had enough other things. And they said, has he ever taken trazodone? And I said, he has a prescription for it. But he had, this is a doctor we nicknamed Dr. Death. that doctor told him he could take trazodone up till it, if it didn't work, to take another one. Anyway, they gave him what they thought was a relatively high dose of trazodone in the hospital. And the hospital was like 4 miles from my house. And they called me at 2:30 in the morning and said, "Can you please come here? We can't control him." And we thought if he had a familiar voice. And so I went to the hospital and I had my raincoat over my pajamas. And I went in his room and I said, "What's going on?" He said, "They're trying to kill me." And he was I said, "What the hell did you give him?" They said, "Trazodone." I said, "How much?" And they told me, and I went, "Oh, that's not nearly the amount he would take at home." And they looked at me, and because you can build up a tolerance to it. And so I said, "I think the medical term for this is a subtherapeutic dose. So you better find something else you can put in his body with the trazodone, or you're going to have a crazy-ass Englishman on your hands for the rest of the night." And I finally went in and I said, "Bill, these people are trying to help you. And they're sorry you're in this situation you're in. I'm sorry you're in the situation you're in. You're not making it any better." And he said, "Well, can that guy quit talking about his ass?" I said, "I don't know what they can do about your roommate, but you can," because apparently at the hospital, they only did asshole surgery on certain days. And this guy was hospitalized for it, and he had to wait till he could get it done. So they switched his roommate. But the doctor, he said, "How do you know about subtherapeutic?" Because I was talking to him later, and he said, "How do you know about subtherapeutic trazodone?" And I said, "Because he started eating it like candy, and this doctor kept upping the prescription." And I was like, "This is really wrong." And I looked at what it was, but I also look at what it was to take him off it. And so I thought, when he takes enough, he goes and sits in the corner quietly. Thank you.
Wow. And your dad was a doctor.
My dad was a doctor.
Yeah, you grew up.
I grew up around all that. I lived in the hospital. I can remember as a little kid following Daddy down the hallway, talking to all the nuns that ran the place at the time. And I really, I spent way too much. When I was little, this is true. And they can't go after anybody, because any adult who took part in this is long gone and dead. My dad gowned me up, put a little mask on me and everything, and sat me in the edge of the operating room so that I might want to be a surgeon. Now, I will tell you right now, if you have an empath psychic child, the fastest way to turn them into not a surgeon is to gown them up and have them sit in the room and look at that.
I can't imagine. I love this. Barbara sleeps on a half grounding sheet.
I do. I sleep on a grounding sheet.
Yeah. I have grounding mats, but they're about 10 years old. And I think they're too strong. Like, we tried sleeping on I bought it for my son.
They're
But
not
it's too
meant to
strong for
sleep on.
him.
If they're meant to attach through your feet, that's a different level of power. I put it on my bed, and I really have no. Now I have a friend who I told her about it, and she got one, and she said she felt like she had spiders crawling over her body all night until she got rid of it. So it's what works for you.
Yeah, it really is. I think that new earthing sheets are easier. Yeah, you spend a lot of time earthing, Debbie. Yeah.
She was out in the swamp with the gators.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, Kendra, I grew up with Mr. Rogers. He was a saint. Still love his messages to this day.
Yes.
That would be a great one to watch, Kendra. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Yeah. And hi, Miriam. Miriam says, "You have the best stories, Nancy Jean." Right?
It's true. People keep telling me that.
Yeah. One time in the hospital, they gave me Ambien to sleep. 15 minutes later, I blacked out. Like, black screen of cartoon. Nurse, checked my vitals every 30 minutes. I was hallucinating when I started coming back.
There's a shot they give you to calm you down. And I know it's all over my medical chart. When I was 17, I got checked in the hospital because they were going to take out, it ended up being a benign breast tumor. And they gave me the shot that was supposed to I was almost asleep when they gave me the stupid shot. And then I could not go to sleep. I was up till 3 in the morning, and the nurses were walking with me and they were talking to me. And so, and so needless to say, I was not hard to knock out the next day when they put me under anesthesia.
Yeah.
And what my father said, if they're ever going to do surgery on you, tell them to not give you that because it is opposite on you. Since then, I've had the Pharmagen test, which is where they test your DNA against all the medicines. And that one was a clear spike, that kind of precursor, just sort of calm you down stuff. If it calms you down, it wakes me up. If it wakes you up, it puts you to sleep. So that's why I can drink caffeine in the middle of the night.
Nice. Yeah. How do you get that shot? Because we've talked about that before, and you knew somebody.
How do you get it? It's you can look it up and look up DNA testing for genetics against drugs. And one of the things that Biden got through when they got through the $30 insulin was that Pharmagen, those tests used to be thousands of dollars to get them done. And they've got it down where it's $99. And in some Medicare places don't charge you anything. The medical practice I go to, I took my report in, which was 92 pages long. I said, this is how everything works with me. And they put it in my chart and patted me on the head and said, that's lovely. But, and of course, they're all affected by big drug companies, which you don't want to do this test. No. And I actually had mine done because a friend of mine ran the company who had developed it. He's a guy I read for. And he said, I want to do something for you. So they came and they just swab your DNA and then they take it off. And I spent 2 hours on the phone with the doctors who developed the test. And they explained to me how to read it all. I have it in my phone. I have it on my computer. I have a printed out copy in my house in a file. And you got to realize when they test drugs, it's a bell curve kind of test. So there's 25% on it's of no use whatsoever, or don't take it at all because it's not going to help you. There's 25% on each. So then there's a 50% in the middle. And it's a sliding scale, whether it's effective for you. Now, I can tell you, I hope to God I never become psychotic because there was no schizophrenic medicine whatsoever that I should touch. It all read off the scale. It has no effect. And I don't know if that's because of who I am or maybe because I really am so seriously that, but I don't, I just don't do it. And you and I've had to fight my whole life with doctors because they would give me the relax you pills, the Xanaxes and all that stuff. And I was put on Xanax, I think it was, when my first year out of college, because I was in a terrible teaching situation and it was making me crazy. And so instead of saying, you should quit your job, they said, oh, take this and you'll be able to survive there. Well, I was teaching media and I had a lot of equipment I was responsible for. And I had a sign in, sign out book, and my kids would sign the stuff out and bring it back. And I took the stuff for a month and I don't remember feeling any different during that month, but I'm real bad about filling prescriptions. So I didn't fill it. And so I was like 7 days I'd been off it. I opened up the book that I signed all the equipment in and out of, and I did not recognize the handwriting that was signing the equipment out. I don't know who was there, but it wasn't me. So I told the doctor, I'm not taking that shit. I'll just live with the bad headaches and stiff neck. God knows it. You should go to a chiropractor and get your neck unstiffened. But anyway, so I'm just telling you, learn your own body. So,
Mary says, paradoxical reaction.
And so my doctors just, of course, the second you tell them you're a psychic, they kind of know they've lost most of the battle with you. But I'm allergic to sulfa drugs. I took that and I thought my heart was going to die.
Wow.
And somebody else here says Gene Site by Myriad. You can find them. Just go in and Google it. And I mean, they're all over the country. I happen to use a company called Pharmagen because that's what's down here. But somebody said they were talking about Benadryl, and I thought they wrote brandy, and I said, yeah, that works too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. You're figgy when you wake. Yeah. Hence the melatonin. Yeah. Let's see. Mary says, if you have Native American ancestry, you're more likely to have side adverse effects from many drugs. Liver can't metabolize drugs as well.
If you're a native, if you have native blood, your liver can be up to 25% smaller than a European liver.
Wow.
And that's why when they started giving him alcohol, it went through him so fast. Yeah. I have a friend who's a Native American counselor, and she said it was a real problem to try. But, the thing is, keep a record. And I figure if a doctor's not going to listen to me when I say, look, this is my life experience, you weren't there. Perhaps that, and they don't want to listen to what you say, perhaps that's not the person.
Yeah. Yeah. Methylation. Okay. I can't pronounce things right today, Anne. Sorry. Has a lot to do with how we metabolize. You have to know your full genetics for a personalized medicine approach.
And that's what if you're using a good company, that's what they're doing. And it changes because, and this is for entertainment purposes only. I don't have a medical license. I can just tell you what worked for me and what doesn't work for me. And as my cardiologist said, when he realized I was a psychic, he said, oh, my aunt's one of the most famous astrologers in India. He said, you're not wired like we are. So
yeah,
that's his opinion. And I'm sure there's no medical school that teaches that.
I love that, though, that he was in tune with that. I had my Jyotish astrology chart done by yogini, and she told me to keep a rosemary plant in my bedroom, and that would help with sleep because it cleanses. Purifying.
It's really
purifying. Yeah, it cleanses the energy in the room. So that was really interesting. Kay says I've taken Ambien before and it worked pretty well, but the last time I took it, I was really groggy the next day and had a sleep hangover. I would rather not take it again.
Is Ambien the one that puts you into, like, you don't know, you get up and you do things and you don't remember it?
You could drive, you could have a lasagna, a whole pan.
I had a friend who, I was working at her house. I was helping her with her business, and she kept saying, oh, go get some crackers. We'll have crackers and cheese for lunch. And we go in the cupboards and there are no crackers there. And she goes, well, I bought crackers at the store. I don't know where the crackers are. So finally, I was in trying to help her clean out her bedroom. And she had a big 4-poster bed with one of those long fringy things that hangs down that goes all the way to the floor. And I lifted it up because I was going to figure out how to sweep underneath. There must have been 100 cracker boxes under there. And I said, did you know you're getting up in the middle of the night and eating crackers? And she said, I kept wondering why I had crumbs in my bed. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mary says, yeah, Ambien is a horrible drug. They gave it to me. I was going through a lot of trauma. My husband had a brain tumor and was acting out, and it was affecting the whole family. And so my doctor kind of almost threw me on the floor to give me antidepressants and Ambien. Because I kept saying, oh, I'm fine, but I was a hot mess. And I did wake up in the middle of the night with my hand inside a potato chip bag, and a glass of wine at my thing, on my nightstand. I was like, I didn't remember either one of them. Had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a tough time. And there's some times that even our homeopathic doctor told us there are some times that it may not be great for your body, but if you're going through something and this is going to help you function in this life, that, then we need it. So, yeah, it is very addictive, right, Kay? Yeah. Yeah. Highly addictive. Yeah. I don't recommend it to anybody, but there was a time there that I took it, and I and I got myself off the antidepressants. I can't remember what I was on at the time, but it was not. After a while, I think your body kind of levels out, or mine did,
Mhm.
and it just made me dizzy. It just made me to the point where I wasn't feeling anything.
Well, I took
Yeah.
Zoloft for a while because I'd been sleep deprived from my last pregnancy for so long. And I couldn't think. I really couldn't function. So the doctor put me on Zoloft and he said, see what happens. And so I was taking it and I guess everything was really fine. And then after I've been taking it for about a year and a half, 2 years, the doctor said, it's time for us to wean you back. He said, don't tell your family or anybody, just see, how the world works. So my daughter knew I was taking them. It was her last year of high school. This is Casey, the middle one. And I was about taking a pill every 4 days. I was at that point in the cycle. And she goes, Mom, are you still taking those pills that are supposed to stop you from being so twitchy? And I said, no, I'm kind of weaning off of them. Why? And she said, you're getting twitchy. So I went and told my doctor. He said, okay, we'll try it for another year. So I tried it for another year and a half. And then I went off of it and I was fine. I'd gotten my body back to whatever I needed to.
Oh, good. Good.
Oh, we're getting wonderful tales from Ambien.
Meredith eating a brisket and a pair of scissors with a pair of scissors while summoning me. I did wake up with a half-eaten fried chicken too. So, a big old chicken breast, and it was like gnawed on. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. I believe we can ask our DNA to be updated and ask for assistance to access DNA that is dormant. Thank you, Anne. I love
That's
that.
true.
That's beautiful.
Joe Dispenza says that's how I got rid of my adult asthma.
Yeah. And, sometimes when I think, oh, I have a bad ankle, and for years, because I crushed my ankle years ago, but now I kind of have changed my story on it. And like we take possession of things that we know are good on our body, right?
Right.
And then it feeds into the power of it. And I do love that we can change our story and change our lives, whether it's sleeping or my ankle or whatever. And it rarely bothers me anymore. It didn't until Saturday night, and I danced for too many hours to a David Bowie band.
Well, that would do it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I hope this show didn't put everybody to sleep.
I think we had a good crew, and everybody was, I love what everybody had to say. Thank you all. Yeah. Yeah. It's, some things we have to take care of it. Sharon, you're amazing. Yeah. Well, anyway, so everybody have a great day. Thank you for being here, Nancy Jean, and we'll be back next Monday. And I don't know what we'll be talking about then, but Nancy Jean
we won't
usually.
know. It'll flow into our lives and they'll say, oh, read about this.
Yeah. Nancy Jean sends me an email and then I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. I'm the pitter patter. But yeah, so everybody have a great day. What are you doing next, Nancy Jean?
I have to talk to someone I think is going to be in my show tomorrow. She's a distance healer. I met her doing a reading when COVID first started, and she had been a Reiki master. And now she was like, what am I going to do now? And she's developed a whole way to work with people. And she asked me, she said, well, can I work on you long distance? And I said, sure. And out of that, we created a group of people that she works with us every Tuesday. And she's been taking notes, and I guess we're all part of her book. But I don't know if she's to the book point yet. But I just want to talk to her and see about working with things that are distance healing. And then what my next thing, immediately after leaving here, I'm going to a friend's store who is being haunted. And she sent me a picture of her at her cash register. And there was a transparent woman between the camera and her. That was a young woman. And so I'm going down there and we're going to I used to read cards there, and I kept the place clean so I could read cards there. But I'm taking down some stuff for her to spray around and to spread. She doesn't. When she first called me, she was really upset, and then she said, "Well, think about it." So I had a talk with the essence that's there, and I said, "Your name starts with M, and you know her, And it ends up some article of this woman's had wandered into the vintage store to be sold, and she follows her stuff around. I don't know why they don't stay on the other side. They don't explain that to me, and I'm going to go talk to her about. When I talked to Gretchen last night, she was like, "No, there's nobody in the store that I'm not happy with. But if you just want to come down and tell them to," because the Civil War soldier that was there the whole time I was there, he was a guardian. He's back. She was very upset. He left during COVID. And I said, he's got to go help the world. I mean, he's one of those. And it was funny because when I worked at the store, people say, "Oh, that's so cute. You're a vintage store and you have a guy dressed up like a Civil War soldier in the corner." And I was like, we won't talk about that. It's real cute.
Yeah, we had a Civil War soldiers that would come out of the field next to us at our old house. We were on a dead end, and there's a cornfield out there, and that and a lot of indigenous beings that would come out and walk by the house and peer in the window because they knew I could see them. Yeah.
Well, they don't do that to me. Where I live, it probably was a cotton field, and I don't know what sort of hideous things may or may not have happened there. And this woman's not unhappy. She kind of liked the fact she found someone she knew.
Yeah. That's
so
beautiful.
I'm going to go down and just kind of check it out and see what happens. And then I'm going to come home. And, my tarot class, it's almost full. I have 2 places left. There's only 10 slots in each class. And that's so we can keep it very personal. And so we can help you answer your questions and help you figure out what you want to do with your reading. And the fairies have told me, the elementals have told me, and under no uncertain terms, that I'm to really get serious about covering the elementals. I think I told you about how the fairies come and rearrange things in my desk. I found my bunny cards. I found them Sunday. They were at a place I'd looked at several times. They were not there. They were put back. But I'd done a big show with Danny on last Wednesday about kind of some basics about the elementals. So I've got to figure out a curriculum about the elementals and decide what to do about it.
Well, thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to take that course too. I've got to sign my name up still.
No, you're in the course.
Oh, good. I'm in it. Okay, good.
Yeah, you're counted in the numbers. And it's $225. It's 6 weeks of instructive lessons, and then it's 4 weeks afterwards where Jeffrey and I meet with you and we give you a chance to just practice with us.
Yeah, I've always been kind of an anarchist in a weird way, and so I did oracle cards because then I could do my new I could make up my own story on every oracle card as Spirit gave to me. But there's so many cool ways to read the tarot. And I feel like the more that I'm watching it, the more that I'm feeling like I want to be a part of that.
It's kind of where it started. And I tell you the truth, I no offense to oracle readers, and there are some really good oracle decks, and there's a few that I really have that I find are incredibly accurate. But there's 78 cards in that deck. You can put bunnies on them, you can put cats on them, but they all kind of work. We're getting an echo here. Anyway, the bottom line is I read reverses. Jeffrey doesn't read reverses. So you get to learn the theory behind both ways of reading that. And I always felt like if I could learn tarot when I was 12, y'all can figure it out. And when I finally taught it, and I've been teaching it 30 years, I realized the key to it is understanding numerology. If you understand the numbers 1 to 10, then you've got 3/4 of the deck cut, because then you just need to understand the suit. And putting those two together, that's so much fun. And then that's the part that overwhelms people is why are all these things so different? But they're not. And I always thought oracle card reading was cheating. I mean, and when I was younger, I really couldn't get into them, but I really there's several oracle cards that I think are very interesting. And so.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And it's interesting in the difference of them too. But I do read a little bit on the Thoth, but I don't know.
I was given one of his decks.
Yeah.
And it was by a guy I was dating. I don't know why he would want me to be in that kind of evil, but maybe he had his own ideas about how that worked. Anyway, he gave it to me and I never even read from it. I mean, the images were so difficult for me to even look at. And so I had a woman friend who said, "Oh, I've always wanted one of those decks. Here, have a deck."
Yeah, Crowley. Yeah, a lot of people think, he's
Alistair was a little weird. Alistair went beyond being a little weird.
Yeah.
Alistair was definitely for entertainment purposes only kind of person. So.
Right. Hey, Singing Tree. We're just getting ready to go. Well, thanks everybody so much for being here, and we'll see you all around the tube. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.